Jojalapa Namaste. Nepalbhasa Times, America Neva Kalabala Jazo, Soyadevi Hanevapi, Sakala Bhaju Meju Pinta, Jimila Shrestha, Laskosiana Jana. Nepalbhasa Times, G, Nepalbhasa Piawegu, Chogu Ye Chogu Jaga, Nepal Kha. Nepalbhasa Patrakarita, Kele Songu Dasak, Nyawanse Sakriya Rubjia, Sanaway Jongu Patrakarita, Putala, To, Nepal, Pitanawaya, Zongudu. थौया थो खलाबला जाजो या मूल उद्देश्य ख नेवा मस्तिष्क विभिन्न क्षेत्रे कागु उपलब्धि या त न्यानिएको ख. Our main objective of today's program is to bring out young achievers of Newa community and highlight their story. Today, we have invited a very young, talented, and beautiful young lady with us here this morning. And before I even introduce her to you all, I would like to give her a brief introduction about her. She has recently graduated from Virginia Tech as a double major in environmental policy and planning and philosophy. Upon her graduation, she won the William Williams Award for the Best Undergraduate in the Philosophy Department. She graduated with an honorary title of Summa Cum Laude, which means she earned her degree with highest destination. She was asked to speak at her philosophy commencement at graduation and gave a speech about what philosophy means to her. She also won a top undergraduate award in the School of Public and International Affairs. During her college, she was heavily involved in a co-ed service fraternity called Alpha Phi Omega as the environmental service chair and initiated several different projects. She has dedicated her college career to service and has completed over 100 hours of service each semester. And she has recently been selected to be a part of the Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society, which only the top 10% of the entire school gets invited to join. In addition to this, she is keen on maintaining her Nepalese heritage, and she showcased this by being the cultural chair for the Nepalese Student Association, and she is Sahara Shrestha. Welcome, Sahara, to our program, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction.
Sure, of course. So before I even start, ask you different questions, when I was reading your profile, I was just blown away. I really want to know, what motivated you? What is the inspiration behind all your achievements, and that also in a very young age?
Yeah. So I think there are two main things that have been a driving factor behind why I do what I do. And the first one obviously is my family. Everything that I've done is always for them. They sacrifice so much to give me everything that I've ever wanted and needed, and all I want to do is make my family proud. And then in addition to that, something that I'm very passionate about is looking at the need in the community. And obviously in school and on the news and when you just read about things, there's so many issues in the world today. And I see myself as someone who has the resources and the time and the energy to, put myself out there to fix some of these needs. So those are two of the things that really motivates me to do what I want to do.
That's really great. Now I want to ask you about your, since you recently graduated as a double major in environmental policy and planning and philosophy. Right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us about your major, what is it all about, and how environment and philosophy, these two are related?
So I'll start with environmental policy and planning. So that major is split into two different things. It's a Bachelor of Science, so the first half of the major really focuses on understanding research, understanding chemistry, biology, geology, environmental sciences. And then the second half of the major really takes that heavy, detailed science and thinks about how can we apply this research to the everyday world? What is the best practical application for all the hard work that these scientists put in? And so then we kind of look at the different policies and planning aspects of it. So, for example, how could we use soil science data to help out farmers? How can we use different measurements in air pollution and walking distance, etc., to plan the best types of cities? So it's a culmination of the science and the policy. And then my second major was really just something that I chose on a whim, philosophy. because my parents never let me take philosophy in high school, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna take my first philosophy class, and I loved it, especially because we really look into arguments and reasoning and why people think the way they think. Why do people have certain ideologies? Why do different types of people have different types of perspectives? And I was like, wow, if I knew that I wanted to do environmental law, and so I knew that I wanted to have something related to environmental sciences, but I added philosophy because I thought that that could put me one step further into my passion, which is being able to use proper reasoning with the environmental sciences. And I think that that is perfectly mended together to give me what I have today. So yeah.
That's really great. I think what, like your point of, like blending those philosophy, because you of course have to know like how human behaves, right?
Yeah.
In order for them to implement those planning and policy. And what you have studied is, I think this subject is really great. So also, like, I want to know, like usually, like when I see the younger generations, like they are mostly interested in like computer science or engineering, or like more like technology
Right.
fields. And you have selected a subject which is like, at least me, I have not heard that before. So what made you choose that subject, like, and also like as you said, like, you can, like if you can give us some example, like how did you do those, if you have like implemented those philosophy and environmental policy, and how you did in your college life.
Okay, so I'll start with the first part of that, which is why I chose something so wildly different. I think every kid in the Nepali community always hears from their parents, we want you to be a doctor, we want you to be an engineer, and sometimes maybe they'll say lawyer, which I ended up, fulfilling that part, hopefully. But like you said, a lot of people do take on the tech field, and I think that's because nowadays you see so many new jobs in that area that, obviously make a lot of money. Like we see big names like Google or like Amazon, and those are all things that are especially coming into our area right now. And like I said, a lot of success comes in that because it is a new field, and it's no surprise that a lot of people choose that. But my dad is in the tech field, and I think growing up I saw him always doing something on the computer science related things. And rather than just being on the computer all day and like sitting in the office, I was always, as a kid, going outside and exploring the outdoors and really looking at nature, always looking at animals, reading about animals. And I realized that, my passion was really environment related and environment focused. And so even as a little kid, I knew I wanted to do something with saving the animals, but I didn't know what an environmental law career was until high school. And that's when I started to look more into the law and, environmentalism. And so when I came to college, I came in actually as an environmental science major. And that major is strictly understanding chemistry. And I was like, well, I don't really need to know everything about chemistry to go to law school. So I looked into different types of majors, and then I found environmental policy and planning, and I realized that's a better fit for me. So that's the first part of the question. And then what was the second part, was how I kind of mixed the two in college. I think just in the way that I have discussions and dialogues with my peers and my teachers, you can really tell that I have, well, hopefully you can tell that I have a good understanding of both aspects of it. Like I said, I really enjoy learning about the sciences, but I get frustrated when we only look at, the science. I always like to ask the bigger question of, why are we doing this? How can we use the science to help other people? And a lot of my essays and a lot of, what I talk about and what I preach when I do service, and we'll get into that probably later, but it really reflects, that balance of the two.
Right, that's really great. I mean, I'm learning so many things from you already. All right, so moving forward, like you also have been, like during your college career, you were also involved in different service fraternity groups, right, as a environmental chair, and you also ran different projects. So can you tell us about what kind of different projects you ran, and what did you do in those projects, and what was your role as an environmental chair?
Yeah, so I was in a co-ed service training, as you said, called Alpha Phi Omega at Virginia Tech, and we do so many different projects within that organization. We do things like walking dogs at the animal shelter, we play bingo at the senior home, we participate in Relay for Life to raise money for cancer research and awareness, and our organization has many different chairs for those various projects. And as you said, I was the chair for environmental service. And actually, before I got that position, what the chair position usually handled, the projects that we did, was just picking up trash around campus. We called it campus cleanup. And it was really fun and really amazing. And obviously, reducing the campus pollution is extremely important. But I thought, especially from what I learned in my majors, there's so many other types of environmental service projects that we could be bringing that would create an even greater impact. And so I'm really big on beginning some sorts of like social movements with environmentalism, because I think that to fix the environment, it really starts with you and me, the everyday person, right? And so the first project that I started was something called the Pledge to Reuse. And so it was a campaign, and basically I would send this Google form out to everybody in my fraternity, and I would get them to collect signatures that would say, I pledge to reuse water bottles and grocery bags instead of plastic water bottles and plastic grocery bags or plastic straws. So basically this campaign was just supposed to get people to promise not to use these single-use plastic items. And then they had the option to buy a reusable grocery bag that my friend designed, and we were able to, so we would sell the bag for $4, and then all the proceeds of the bag would go to the National Forest Foundation, where every dollar would plant a tree. So I'm really big on like raising awareness, and then focusing on where the money can go, and then also seeing different aspects of environmental issues being solved with one type of effort, which was the campaign. And it actually grew and was very popular, and people were buying the bags, and I would get text messages from my friends being like, my mom and dad are using the grocery bags, like no more plastic in this house. And that's really all it was about. If I can just get one person to change their mindset, even if it's just one less plastic bottle, right, then they'll tell their parents, they'll tell their friends, and that's really what's important to me. But yeah, that was just one of the projects that I worked on.
You have really done a lot. I mean, like, that's really great. I mean, like, at least if one person is able to do that, and that person is gonna, like, tell somebody else, so that way there's gonna be a bigger change.
Yeah.
And I think what you have done through those programs are just phenomenal, and I hope you will be continuing to do that.
Yes.
All those things. Okay, so also I have heard that you went to Nepal and volunteered in an orphanage home, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us about that? What was your perspective before going to Nepal, and what did you do there, and all those things.
So I went to Nepal when I was 15, and I remember, so that was my sophomore year of high school, and I remember I just felt like I needed to do something, because I was just sitting at home watching TV, or I would go out with my friends, and I knew that I could do something more, especially the way that my parents talk about Nepal, the way that our family talks about Nepal. There's a need for the people there, and there are people, and I talked to them, and they were like, well, you have your Niva auntie who runs the Daya Foundation in Nepal, and they worked with this girls' home or girls' orphanage in Nepal called the Metta Center. And so my Niva auntie was able to connect me with the Metta Center, and I just said, okay, I'm going, and I just went by myself to Nepal. And before, my perspective before was definitely like, okay, I am someone who had the privilege of living the American lifestyle, had the privilege of having all the resources handed to me by my parents, by my family, and now I'm going to an area where the girls that I'm going to be living with, the girls that I'm going to be helping and staying with, didn't have the same lifestyle as me. And so I knew that it was going to be a culture shock. But when I got there, I didn't realize how big of a culture shock it really was. Because, my family, I consider myself to be super Nepali and Nawari, but when you go there, it's a completely different world. It's a completely different lifestyle. And I wanted to immerse myself in that fully. And so the center was run by a Buddhist monk, so I really tried my best to live exactly like the girls. So 5 a.m. we would wake up, we would meditate, we would do our chores. I was horrible at peeling potatoes. I didn't know you could be bad at peeling potatoes, but they were like going so fast and I was so slow. I would go to school with the girls. I talked to the principal at their local government school, and I was actually able to teach English to grade 5 and grade 7 school kids. And basically, my whole goal was, let's teach them English. That was my initial thing. But as I got to learn from them, got to know more about them, I realized that their need is so much greater than just learning English, right? I was only 15, so how am I supposed to teach all these girls? They come from, they're ranged from 6 to 20s. And I was like, oh, I'm going to teach them English, It's very naive thinking for anyone, I think, to just go into a different country and think that they can, give them everything. But you have to be realistic, and you have to understand what their true needs are. And so these girls were amazing, and I felt like they were my sisters. Like, they called me Didi or a sister if they were I was younger than them. And they come from such difficult backgrounds, like domestic violence, domestic abuse, or they don't have parents, or their family can't afford to send them to school. So you really have to get to know these girls to understand what they really needed. And I learned this especially when there was another tourist organization that came to the center when I was staying there. And it was a group of like 30, 40 people. And they walked into the center, and they had books and pencils and notebooks, and the girls were like, oh my gosh, thank you. And they took pictures with the girls, and they left, like 30 minutes probably total. And I helped the girls carry all the books to a huge storage closet and room that was already filled with books, pencils, and notebooks. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the intention of the tourist group was very nice. Obviously, they want to help the girls. They know that they are trying to go to school, and they have no ill intention, right? But if they had just talked to the girls, formed a relationship with the girls, then maybe they would have known that they needed different things, And so after talking with the girls for so long, I realized that they didn't have a fund for higher education. So basically, they would get funding from elementary school all the way to 10+2, and then after that, there was no funding for college or university. And so there was actually the eldest girl there. Her name is Maya Didi. She was studying to get her entrance exam to Kathmandu University, and she got in, which is amazing. But the center couldn't really afford to send her to that school. So what I ended up doing is I was like, no, we're going to figure this out. This is obviously the reason why I'm here, is to, help you more than just teaching you, okay, how to say V instead of V, right? There's something more that I could be doing here. So I talked to my Nivanti and Rajas uncle, and the Daya Foundation was actually able to fund for her full tuition. And she just graduated from school last fall.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah. So I think when you go in with like, okay, I'm just going to teach them English, it's very narrow-minded. You have to communicate with the people and learn from them. It's not just, me, I'm privileged, I get to teach them everything. No, you can learn things from them too. And what I learned is that you have to listen to people that you're helping. They took care of me too. Even I was supposed to volunteer with them. One time I got sick because I ate a cucumber, and they were actually the ones taking care of me. So, it's a beautiful thing when service goes both ways, learning goes both ways. And I think I'm so grateful to have had that experience. And I think every single person, especially Nepali children, who were born here or who have been here for such a long time, should go back by themselves, have that experience, like learn from those types of people, because we want, obviously all of our parents want their kids to be in tune with their culture, and what better way to do that than by going there and talking to actual people, beyond just your family and your comfort zone. So yeah.
So you already talked something about the culture, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk more about this culture,
Yeah.
since I know like your entire family, your grandparents has been such a prominent person about like preserving our Newa culture, right? So like you being born here in the United States, and like how hard or how easy was it, like when going to school or when in college, to blend between these two cultures? And how, like, do you think like our Nepal culture has helped you become who you are, and like how it has helped you shape who you are?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I definitely think my Newari identity, my Nepali identity is part of who I am today, just as much as my American one is. I think I had it easier than my cousins and my siblings because I went to a school where it was very diverse and we had all sorts of types of people, and all my friends were very curious. I was very curious about their family. They were very curious about my family. They came over to my house, had momos, dal bhat, everything. Even to this day, they still ask me like, when can we eat momos? When are your parents gonna make momos?
Yes.
Even my teacher would be like, we brought it one time to a cookout, and my teacher would still be like, oh, I remember when you made, you know, your mom's chicken was so good. And so I grew up in an environment where it was cool for me to be, you know, Nepali. But then I moved to a different school that, you know, obviously it was less diverse, and I was not only just, I've always been the only Nepali girl in my school, but just, you know, one of the few minority people in my school. And that's when I realized, you know, hey, I am different than other people. And so I was never ashamed to be Nepali, but it did become a thing where it was easier to, you know, hide that side of me. And I think a lot of people my age go through the same thing when you're wearing tika and people are like, why is your forehead bleeding?
Yes.
You know? And you're just like, what? I mean, it's a blessing. And, you know, they don't understand. And it just becomes, when you're a kid, it just becomes easier to fit in when you just, you know, leave that at home. So at home, everybody, you know, loves their culture, loves the food, everything. But then when you bring it to school, it's like, why does your lunch smell? What are you eating? Not the same, oh, let me try the momo, let me try this, right? So it's difficult, I think, for everybody, you know, being raised here. And I think I'm advantaged by that because my parents came here also when they were so young. So that my parents came at a time when they were also trying to figure out American culture, and they were excited and curious, but they were also, you know, wanted to maintain their Nepali roots, and you know, they were missing home. So when I was really raised in a blended environment. So we would speak Newari, we would speak Nepali and English at the table. We would eat, you know, pasta and spaghetti, but we would also have dal bhat. So it was a very blended home, and I really appreciate that balance because I know that there are other kids, you know, in our community that really struggle with, okay, when do I turn on my Nepali side? When do I turn it off? And I feel like it shouldn't have to be like that because, you know, even going into college, that was the first time where I had Nepali peers and classmates. Because I never had that before. I never had people to, you know, just sit and I would hum a Nepali song and they would finish it. And I'm like, this is cool. I never had that type of relationship with people like in my culture or community before that weren't my family members. And so that's obviously when I got involved with, you know, NSA, which is the Nepali Student Association at Tech. And at first you don't want to be like, there's a stigma against being too Nepali. And there's a stigma against being too Americanized. And I was just like, you know what? Like, look at all these people who are balancing both. I can do that too. And it wasn't really until like last year where I got really close with the Nepali people in my school. And it wasn't like me being like, okay, this is my conscious choice to hang out with Nepali people at this time. It was just like, these are my friends, just like any of my other friends. And I think that if everybody that was a youth, you know, nowadays just felt like that, I think they would realize it's not as scary. The stigma can just go away because you don't need to have just the Nepali side of you and the American side of you. You can just be you and let that be.
Yeah, that's a really great point that you raised. Like, just be yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to act in some way just because someone might be like, you know,
oh, she's too
looking at you,
Nepali.
right?
Yeah.
But just be who you are.
Yeah.
I think that's a very great point, and thank you for sharing your stories, you know. Now let's go towards a little lighter note, you know. I just want to know, like, what's your like daily routine like, or your interests, your hobbies, you know.
Whoa. Okay. My daily routine. So like now I'm thinking about summer where I don't do anything, but like during school, my daily routine, I think I was so focused on my academics and my education that now that I'm in the summer mode, I'm like, what do I do now? I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with all this free
so
time.
What do you used to do like when you're in the school?
So,
because
yeah,
you're such a young achiever. You have so much achieved, so we want to know like what we should be doing.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful that everything, all my extracurriculars, I never did it as something just to put on my resume. You know, everything that I did, I genuinely wanted to be there. Like, I made my friends with every organization that I was in. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just here to be here, just to, you know, show my face and write it down on my resume to get a job or to get into whatever school. It was like, my friends are there, I'm there, we're having a great time. Like, even though we're in the mud picking turnips, trying to help a farmer, like, this is something that I really enjoy. So, you know, community service just became part of my everyday routine. Like, after class, maybe I would go to bingo, or on a weekend I would be like, hey, does anyone want to go to the shelter to play with the kittens? You know, it wasn't something that was a chore or a task or a requirement. For fun, I went to school in Blacksburg, so hiking was really big, anything outdoors. We're a really big football school, so we love going to football games. I just really like trying to see as many things as I possibly can. You know, not trying to say no to new experiences, because you never know, you know, what new thing you could learn.
Every experience is always good,
right? And
so.
Especially my last semester, I started to go to different lectures and different talks. So I went to see like an economist speaking about XYZ. I saw the PR person from the Vatican one day. Even, you know, my fellow classmates, maybe they have a presentation. I just like to learn new things, even if it has nothing to do with my major. If I can see that there's somebody who is speaking passionately about something that they love, that just makes me like interested in that. And it's also really just good to learn new things. So this summer I'm like Googling, trying to go to different things, trying to educate myself, because I like to learn. So the other day, spontaneously, we were at the Apple store, and this man was like, yeah, we're teaching a free GarageBand like music producing lesson. And I was like, let's just take it, you know? Because why not? I have nothing else to do.
Yeah. So what would you say to the younger generations, you know, who's looking up to you, like, and want to be like a young achiever like you? Like, what would you like give advice to them?
I would say try, especially when you're young, get your foot in everything. Like, try every single thing, because you won't know if you don't like it. You won't know if you do like it if you don't go out there and try something new. Like, I remember growing up, I would be put in sports camp. Knew right away I was not athletic. I would be put in different arts camps, different science camps, all these different types of things. And you just gotta go out there and try new things. Otherwise, how are you gonna know what you love? And luckily, I knew that I really love nature and I love people and helping others. And so I was lucky to have found that at an early age. A lot of people don't know what they want to do right away, and that's so okay. I think we have a lot of pressure from our parents that we have to know exactly what we want to do. From 5 years, when you were born, you're going to be a doctor. Yeah, and, you know, I have a little sister, and we always put pressure on her too, and sometimes I have to remember and step back and be like, okay, you're not the same person as me. You don't have the same journey as me. You don't have the same passions as me. You're your own person. And I think it's so important that, you know, not just give advice to youth, but give advice to the parents to, you know, give your kids some space. Allow your kid to dive into what they're passionate about. It doesn't have to be their career. Like, I love music and playing music, but that's not my career. But that's something that I love to do. That's my hobby. So don't like tell your kid, oh, no more piano or no more singing, no more acting, because you can't make a job out of that. No, that is something that, you know, if you're worried about college and stuff, that passion is something that colleges are interested in. It makes you different. Oh, this person is interested in acting but wants to major in software engineering. Wow, that's really like such a dynamic pair. So that's my advice to everybody, I think, is just continue to do it. Yeah, go out there, try new things, and if you find something you're passionate about, just don't stop doing that. It doesn't have to be your career, but, you know, maybe it could be, but it doesn't have to be, and I think that's, you know, the road to success.
That's an amazing advice to all the young generations out there, and I think you should all listen to that. Okay,
parents too.
Yes. All right, so finally we are almost at the end of our interview session. So like finally I want to know, like, what are your future goals? What are you planning to do in the future?
So I will be going to law school next fall at George Mason in Arlington, so I'll be close to home. I know my family is really happy about that because I was kind of far away at Tech. But like I said, I really would like to continue on this path of going towards environmental law, maybe helping to form environmental policies. I'm very, very interested in the sector between environmental law and international law or comparative law. So not just focusing on America, but different countries like Nepal. How can Nepal create policies? How can Nepal's government or different governments, the Chinese government, European governments, how can they work together to create, environmental goals that benefit everyone? Because the environment is shared, we all breathe the same air, we all drink the same water. It's just that in certain locations, they are at a more disadvantage because of where they are, Obviously here in America, we don't feel the effects of climate change, but in Bangladesh, there's flooding. In various areas, there's very bad pollution, and it's a global effort. And so I would really like to be a part of that global effort, to make that change, to incorporate the service, incorporate the environmentalism, use what I've learned from my cultural identity, everything. Just use all of it and maybe help someone along the way. But yeah, that's my goal for right now.
Okay, thank you so much for all your insightful conversation, and I wish you all the best for your future endeavors. And
thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much everyone for watching us live this afternoon. And before we wrap up our conversation, I would like to make some announcement of the local activities that are going around in the DMV area. One of it is the NOA 9th Group Ketapuja, which is happening on Saturday, July the 13th. And there is also another event by NPPA, 4th Sapuru, an annual summer picnic on July 18th at Wheaton Regional Park. And also I would like to thank several people who have helped us set up all these and in this interview. So I would like to thank our producer, Mr. Praveen Tamrakar. On camera we have Joymbu Ranjit, coordinator Santi Shrestha, and advisor Keith Friedman. Thank you so much everyone for your valuable contribution. And also I would also like to thank our Mr. Ram Malakar for all your support. And thank you everyone. So hope to see you all in the next episode. Thank you so much. And Jojalapa.